Hey, I'm gonna try and make this video quick. I'm not sure how that's gonna go though. This is a video response to The Honest Theist. He has a video entitled, "On What Grounds Do You Reject the Kalām Cosmological Argument?" Excuse me. And I think he's specifically referencing William Lane Craig's version, so that's the one that I'm gonna talk about. And I mean, it's pretty similar to the classical version, but Craig's version is basically, it has 4 points, and the first 2 are premises. The third is the conclusion, and the fourth is like an additional conclusion. Point 1 is whatever begins to exist has a cause. Point 2 is the universe began to exist. Point 3 is therefore the universe has a cause, which is a conclusion. And point 4, which is an additional conclusion, is this God is the God of classical theism, or this cause, sorry, is the God of classical theism and is a personal being because he chose to create the universe. So, he mentions in his video that most people most people that argue against it, reject it on grounds of, virtual particles don't appear to have a cause. And, that's, I do think there are some arguments that can be made there, but I think, people who make those arguments are kind of missing the elephant in the room. They're going after the premises when really the argument itself is flawed. Points 1, 2, and 3 are consistent. 3 does follow from 1 and 2. 3, therefore the universe has a cause. That is a valid conclusion based on the premises. However, 4 is a complete non sequitur. It does not follow from any of the other premises. It merely asserts God into existence. We do not know. First of all, it doesn't have to be a supernatural cause. First of all, it's probably more likely to be a natural cause, considering the fact that every time we pit naturalism against supernaturalism, supernaturalism has a 100% fail record, and naturalism has a 100% win record. Now, that doesn't mean that it's definitely not a supernatural cause. It just means that, supernaturalism is not the best explanation for what kind of a cause it is. And 4 is just sort of like tacked on to the end. It's like, oh, and by the way, it's not only was it a supernatural cause, but it was specifically a deity, and that deity was specifically the God of classical theism. And, Craig doesn't make it in this argument, but of course it's assumed that this particular theistic God is the Christian theistic God. Or at the very least, the Abrahamic God. Because this is the Kalām cosmological argument, which was originally popularized by Muslim apologists. So anyway, 4 is a complete non sequitur. It doesn't follow from the rest of the line of reasoning. And while I do think that there are some contentions to be made about 1 and 2, I think, if they're worded slightly differently, they do make sense. And 3 does follow from 1 and 2. 4 does not. Not at all. Not only does does the argument not prove a supernatural cause, but it doesn't prove, even if it did prove a supernatural cause, it doesn't prove that that supernatural cause is a god. Even if it does prove that it's a god, it doesn't prove that it's a theistic god. Even if it does prove that it's a theistic god, it doesn't prove that it's the Abrahamic god. Even if it does prove an Abrahamic god, it doesn't prove that it's the Christian god. So it is a complete non sequitur. It is simply asserting God into existence. And I do think there are some contentions to be made with 1 and 2. I think 1, instead of whatever begins to exist has a cause, I think what it should be is everything that we have observed come into existence has a cause, or at least everything that everything that we know that has come into existence has a cause. And point 2, the universe began to exist, I think could be better worded as the universe as we know it began to exist. And, I think there can be some arguments made that the universe as we know it may have began with the Big Bang, but we don't, we don't know if it existed in another form prior to that, or if prior to that even makes sense. Point 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. If we say it, as everything that we know that has began to exist has a cause. I think, we do know that the universe began to exist as we know it. We don't know that it began to exist, just as, as itself. So I think, all this argument does is it proves that the universe as we know it had a cause. But I would argue that it's most likely, and in fact it's almost 100% likely that cause is natural, completely natural, not supernatural. And so that's probably enough. I don't think I need to say any more. So, thanks. Bye.